What if everything you've been told about Iran was only half the truth? What if the most powerful nation on earth is no longer in control of the game and the one rising against it has been underestimated all along? This is not just about politics, oil, or borders. This is about the fall of old empires and the rise of new forces, quiet, strategic, and unshakably bold. In a world shaped by headlines and hidden agendas, you're about to hear what the mainstream media won't dare to show. This is a story of resistance in the face of domination, of strategy overpowering strength, and of a nation defying the odds while the world looks the other way. This is not a speech. It's a wake-up call. If you think you know the truth about Iran and America, think again. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you won't see the global balance of power the same way again. Iran's rise as a formidable force in the global power structure has significantly altered the geopolitical landscape, especially in the Middle East. For decades, the United States treated Iran as a regional nuisance, isolated, sanctioned, and supposedly on the brink of collapse. That perception no longer holds. Today, Iran stands as a symbol of defiance against Western hegemony, leveraging its strategic location, ideological influence, and deep-rooted regional alliances to reshape the power dynamics not only in the Middle East, but on the global stage. America's fear is no longer just about Iran's military capabilities. It's about the irreversible shift in influence that Iran now commands through a web of silent, strategic partnerships. The most critical change lies in Iran's growing alignment with major world powers, most notably China and Russia. While the U.S. continues to apply sanctions and diplomatic pressure, Iran has simply pivoted eastward. The 25-year strategic partnership agreement with China, worth billions of dollars, marked a bold move away from Western dependency. This agreement includes cooperation in energy, banking, cybersecurity, and military coordination. Iran's involvement in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, and BRICS reflects its transition from pariah state to global stakeholder. These ties are not superficial. They are economic lifelines and military insurance policies that shield Iran from total isolation. Iran's geographical position also cannot be overlooked. It sits at the heart of key trade and energy corridors, controlling access to the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for global oil transport. This gives Tehran immense leverage over global markets, especially during moments of heightened tension. When combined with its expanding drone, missile, and cyber capabilities, Iran has demonstrated that it can punch far above its weight class, especially in a world increasingly defined by hybrid warfare. America's fear is no longer rooted in a possible military confrontation. It's in the slow erosion of its unilateral power. Iran has built a model of resistance rooted in strategy, endurance, and adaptability. While Western media downplays this evolution, policymakers understand the deeper implications. Iran is no longer an isolated rogue state. It's becoming a central player in a new multipolar world order where the United States no longer calls all the shots. Iran's proxy strategy has quietly become one of the most effective tools of geopolitical influence in modern history. While global powers invest in aircraft carriers and fighter jets, Iran has invested in ideology, training, and relationships, building a shadow network of armed groups that act on its behalf across the Middle East. This strategy gives Iran the ability to project power far beyond its borders without exposing itself to the direct consequences of war. America's fear isn't just rooted in Iran's growing capabilities, but in the way Iran has mastered the art of indirect warfare, undermining U.S. interests through partners that can't be easily traced back to Tehran. Groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various Shia militias in Iraq and Syria serve as extensions of Iranian military doctrine. These are not random insurgent groups. They are disciplined, battle-hardened, and deeply loyal to the ideological and strategic goals of the Iranian regime. They receive funding, intelligence, training, and advanced weapons from Iran, allowing them to challenge U.S.-backed forces and allies without Tehran having to deploy conventional troops. The brilliance of this approach is its deniability. When Hezbollah fires rockets into Israel, or when the Houthis strike Saudi oil fields, the world doesn't see Iranian tanks crossing borders. They see local actors pushing back against U.S. allies. This network gives Iran both reach and flexibility. It can escalate tensions without crossing red lines that will provoke full-scale war. It can disrupt oil flows, attack American bases, and destabilize rival governments, all while maintaining a buffer from direct retaliation. This kind of asymmetric warfare has proven devastatingly effective, especially in an era where conventional invasions are politically costly and increasingly unpopular. American generals and intelligence officials know that fighting Iran is not about defeating one army. It's about untangling a vast underground web of loyal fighters spread across multiple nations. What makes this even more dangerous for the United States is the ideological commitment of these proxy forces. They're not just fighting for territory, they see themselves as part of a spiritual and historical struggle against foreign domination. That level of motivation can't be easily bombed out or sanctioned away. It creates a long-term, deeply entrenched resistance movement that chips away at America's influence day by day, strike by strike, message by message. Iran's approach to its nuclear program reflects a strategy built on patience, resilience, and calculated provocation. Despite years of crippling sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and threats of military action, Iran has never fully abandoned its nuclear ambitions. Instead, it has played a long game, pushing forward incrementally, stopping just short of crossing red lines that would trigger a major international response. This steady progression has become one of the primary reasons for America's growing unease. The concern is no longer just about uranium enrichment levels. It's about the fact that Iran has survived every attempt to stop its program and emerged more confident in its ability to defy global pressure. The collapse of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, which once placed limits on Iran's nuclear activities, marked a turning point. When the United States unilaterally withdrew from the deal in 2018, Iran shifted gears, not with open aggression, but with calculated steps that sent a clear message. We will not be cornered. From restarting advanced centrifuges to increasing uranium enrichment levels, each move has been designed to test the resolve of the international community without provoking outright war. Iran's nuclear timeline has shortened, and while it has not declared the intent to build a weapon, the knowledge, infrastructure, and capability are now well within reach. What makes this situation more alarming is the geopolitical shield that Iran has built around itself. With support from powers like China and Russia, any serious attempt by the West to reimpose full international isolation faces diplomatic resistance. These alliances have given Iran the confidence to reject pressure and move forward at its own pace. It knows that time is on its side, especially in a world where U.S. influence is increasingly challenged and global attention is divided among multiple crises. Iran's nuclear progress has become symbolic of a larger power shift. It exposes the limits of American power and questions the effectiveness of traditional tools like sanctions and military threats. For Washington, the fear is not just about the possibility of a nuclear-armed Iran, it's about the precedent Iran sets, showing other nations that you can resist, adapt, and eventually outlast the most powerful country in the world. This realization changes the entire strategic equation, making Iran's defiance far more dangerous than any headline suggests. The United States once held near unquestioned dominance in the Middle East, with its military bases, economic leverage, and diplomatic weight shaping the region for decades. But that dominance has eroded significantly, and Iran's open defiance is a direct reflection of that decline. After prolonged and costly failures in Iraq and Afghanistan, American credibility in the region has taken a major hit. Allies have grown skeptical of U.S. commitments while adversaries have become emboldened. Iran has capitalized on this shift by positioning itself as the one power that stands firm against Western intervention, and that message has resonated far beyond its borders. The fall of Saddam Hussein, the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the continued instability in Syria have exposed deep flaws in America's foreign policy strategy. These moments created vacuums, power vacuums, that Iran was quick to fill. By stepping into the chaos with both political and military influence, Iran began to shape regional outcomes in ways that the U.S. could no longer control. Where American influence once dictated the terms of diplomacy, Iran now plays the long game, cultivating partnerships, exploiting instability, and presenting itself as a more consistent force than the unpredictable swings of U.S. policy. This erosion of trust in the United States is particularly evident among traditional allies. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and even Turkey have started to hedge their bets, engaging more deeply with China, Russia, and even Iran itself. These nations are no longer confident that Washington will protect their interests unconditionally. Meanwhile, Iran continues to project an image of resistance and sovereignty, which gains it admiration even among populations that don't necessarily align with its ideology. It's a perception battle that Iran is winning, not by overpowering the U.S. militarily, but by exposing its vulnerabilities. American military might still exist in the region, but it's increasingly reactive rather than directive. Iran launches missile strikes, sponsors regional militias, and threatens American bases with a boldness that would have been unthinkable 2 decades ago. This isn't just defiance, it's calculated confidence. Iran knows that Washington is weary of more conflict and aware of the global consequences of escalation. That knowledge shifts the balance of power, and Iran uses it as leverage to act with near impunity, rewriting the rules of engagement in a region once dominated by the American playbook. Iran's ability to survive and even adapt under some of the most aggressive sanctions in modern history has become a quiet but powerful form of resistance. For over 4 decades, the United States and its allies have tried to cripple Iran's economy through embargoes, asset freezes, and financial blacklisting. Yet instead of collapse, Iran has developed a parallel economic strategy, one that is resourceful, unconventional, and increasingly independent of the Western-led global financial system. This economic resilience is not just a policy achievement. It's a psychological blow to U.S. power, proving that economic warfare alone cannot bring a nation like Iran to its knees. Oil, the lifeblood of Iran's economy, has been the primary target of sanctions. But Tehran has found ways to sell its crude on gray markets, using covert shipping methods, front companies, and barter deals with countries willing to defy U.S. pressure. China, in particular, has become a key partner, continuing to purchase Iranian oil despite sanctions. Through creative financial channels, including cryptocurrency and regional banking agreements, Iran has bypassed traditional systems like SWIFT, undermining America's ability to isolate it economically. These workaround strategies have evolved into long-term economic adaptations, making it harder and harder for Washington to turn the screws effectively. Iran is also focused on domestic production and self-reliance, investing heavily in sectors like agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and defense. Sanctions have forced the country to innovate, developing local industries that previously relied on imports. This drive for self-sufficiency hasn't made Iran prosperous, but it has made it more durable. The very pressure meant to break Iran has instead hardened its economy and political resolve. While inflation and poverty remain serious challenges, the state has maintained enough control to prevent unrest from toppling its leadership or undermining its regional ambitions. Partnerships with countries like Russia, Venezuela, and China have further strengthened Iran's economic survival strategy. These alliances are not just about trade. They're about building a global system that operates outside the U.S.-dominated order. As the West continues to sanction, Iran and its partners continue to build alternatives, from new trade routes under China's Belt and Road Initiative to barter systems that exchange goods without using the dollar. This evolution of Iran's economy is not just an act of resistance. It is a declaration that American economic power is no longer absolute and that a multipolar financial world is rapidly emerging. The Western media has played a significant role in shaping public perception about Iran, often framing it solely as a threat, a rogue state, or a destabilizing force. What is rarely shown, however, is the full scope of Iran's strategic wins, its growing regional influence, or the failures of U.S. policy that have allowed Iran to rise. This selective reporting is not accidental. It reflects a broader strategy of narrative control designed to protect the illusion of American dominance and downplay the reality that U.S. influence in the Middle East is waning. By controlling what people see and hear, the media creates a version of reality that aligns with geopolitical interests rather than facts on the ground. When Iran successfully retaliates against Israeli or American targets, or when its allies achieve political or military gains, these events are often minimized, buried, or omitted entirely from mainstream Western coverage. For example, the role of Iranian-backed militias in pushing back U.S. presence in Iraq, or the Houthis' ability to strike deep into Saudi territory using Iranian technology, rarely receive the coverage they deserve. These are not small developments. They reflect a shift in power dynamics, but they are treated as isolated incidents, stripped of context and long-term significance. The goal is clear: prevent the public from recognizing that Iran, despite years of pressure, is actually winning key battles in the long game. Media silence also extends to Iran's diplomatic achievements. Its strengthening ties with Russia, China, and several global South countries are often framed as desperate moves by a cornered regime rather than smart geopolitical plays. The fact that Iran has been accepted into international organizations like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is rarely highlighted in the West because it challenges the narrative of isolation. Instead of acknowledging that Iran is becoming a stakeholder in a new multipolar world order, the media continues to portray it as a pariah on the brink of collapse. This kind of narrative manipulation keeps audiences uninformed and reinforces a false sense of security. It allows policymakers to continue failed strategies without accountability and prevents meaningful public debate on the consequences of continued confrontation with Iran. The truth is, what's happening behind the scenes, what the media won't show you, is that Iran has not only survived the storm, but has learned how to navigate and manipulate it, emerging more resilient and strategically positioned than ever before. The truth is undeniable now. Iran is no longer a nation that can be bullied into submission, silenced by sanctions, or contained by outdated policies. It has outmaneuvered economic warfare, weaponized proxy alliances, and built powerful diplomatic and strategic ties across the East. It has rewritten the rules of engagement, forcing even the most powerful superpower to rethink its every move. America's fear of Iran is no longer based on speculation. It's rooted in the hard reality of a rising force that refuses to bow, that refuses to break, and that continues to expose the cracks in a once unchallenged empire. What the media won't show you is the beginning of a new world, one where defiance is stronger than dominance and resilience outweighs raw power. Thank you for watching this message to the end. May this speech inspire you to question deeper, think sharper, and never accept the surface version of truth. Stay bold, stay informed, and never stop seeking the reality behind the headlines. Good luck on your journey. Truth has power, and now it's in your hands.